right, time to get started in our web development journey here with some real code, some real HTML stuff. So what we're going to be building in the long run, once we get around to it, is we're going to be building a calculator. Just a simple math calculator that adds, subtracts, divides, multiplies, that sort of stuff. In order to do that, we're going to be going over a couple things. So to get started, we need to start off with HTML. So what's HTML? HTML is all about the structure of a page. What we're looking at here in this index.html is HTML. It's a special kind of way of formatting a document so that your web browser, whether that's Chrome or Safari or whatever, can actually read the document and output what the web view looks like to you. That's what HTML really fundamentally does. It's not about making things look nice, like it's not about changing colors or the way things are laid out. It's really just like raw structure. What comes first, what comes second, what's on top of what, and what's the actual content, like the actual text, that sort of thing. That's kind of what goes into HTML. So the browser can read this file. Now it can only read it if it's in what we call the proper syntax. This is a word we're going to use a bit. Syntax, like when we speak of grammar or the way you put a sentence together, is basically the right way to format your code. So in this case, HTML has a particular syntax. Now, when we look at this HTML document, we can see a couple things going on here. So we can see even when we hover over this, Code Sandbox provides us with a little bit of information. The body element represents the content of the document. So HTML is a document. So what's the syntax that we see? Well, we see these less than, greater than signs, and inside of each of them is some letters. This one says HTML, this one says head, there's a bunch that say meta, title, body, H1. So these are called tags or elements. We can sometimes use those terms interchangeably. Sometimes you'll hear me calling them tags. Sometimes you'll hear me calling them elements. They are a little bit different, but it's okay for now if you just kind of imagine the same thing. Basically, you imagine it's one of these little things enclosed with this greater than, less than sign. Now, some of them you'll see have content inside them. So this body one has a beginning to it and it has an end. The end starts with this slash, whereas the start doesn't have that. Same with the H1. H1 opens here and closes here. So that slash represents the closing of a given HTML element or tag. So in this case, you can see that we actually put the text content for the H1 inside the H1 tag. Now, what does that mean? Well, H1, it says here, represents a section heading. So H stands for heading here. So heading 1. And there's different. You can imagine there's heading 2, heading 3. Another one that we're going to run into a lot is the P tag, and this stands for paragraph. So we do an open tag and a close tag, and we say this is a paragraph tag. Okay, and if we save that, we will see it appear beneath, and the font is preset to be different. We still can't change the color very easily. We're going to get into that when we get to CSS, but HTML provides some of these like basic building blocks that we can use to stick different pieces into our site in a rough way. In the very early internet, things were mostly HTML. In fact, if we were to go to a website like Berkshire Hathaway, which we looked at briefly before, we see that this is not so styled. There's a little bit of color, but really everything's white. There's a few lines. The font is the same as this default font, and things aren't really styled up all that much. There's maybe a little bit of larger text here and there, but this is using mainly HTML. So it's simple. It's the original kind of internet. One of the most important elements or tags that we're going to use all the time, you're going to use all the time when you're developing, and one that you've seen if you were inspecting things on different websites, is one called the div tag. Now, this doesn't really do anything in itself. If I was to put the div tag here, div, and press save, nothing changes, nothing happens. It stands, I believe, for division, but it says it has no special meaning at all. So what it really is it's a block that's used to just like kind of organize and break up content. You should really think of it as like a rectangle. So I could put all this content inside the div tag and it won't change anything again. But now this is kind of like contained. So we're going to get into why we're going to use this. I want to show it to you because we're going to use it to organize the different blocks of content that we're going to have. Oh, I want this part to be over here and I want this part to be here, but it's got text and images and everything in it. So we put it in a little basket, which is the div tag. The div tag is like a little container, a little box that we put different chunks of HTML in so we can later move it around or style it or do whatever we want with it. Div is quite important. Another one that we're going to use for our uses is the button tag. So we have the button tag, which again opens and closes, and we can save that, and we can see we have this one. It can say click me. Doesn't do anything, but it's a kind of preset element that exists in HTML. Now we've gone over opening and closing a tag in this case. Another important thing is nesting HTML. You can see here that HTML documents is like, it's stuff inside of stuff inside of stuff. So we have our body tag, and inside the body tag we have the div tag, and inside the div tag we have the h1 tag, and then it closes, then we have the p, and then the div closes. So again, it's a little hard to just say it, but even looking at this document, you got to get used to seeing this idea that things are nested inside other pieces. Like when you make a bullet list, when you're taking notes on something, you go, oh, I need to add more information that pertains to this other note. Let me put it in a nested format. That's how HTML works. Everything is nested inside everything else. So we're going to run into that all the time. Now, in terms of trying to break this, what happens if you don't close a tag? So the thing about HTML is sometimes things will still work. So it can really trick you and it can screw you up and lead to a lot of bugs. So for instance, if I just take away this p tag and I save that, nothing really broke. Look, this button moved, which is kind of weird. And I can see here that because Code Sandbox is trying to prevent me from making errors, it closed the p tag automatically for me. So you can see it actually automatically closed it for me. So I can't really show you what happens. But let's say I take out this h1, and now it made everything the same as the h1 tag instead of the paragraph tag. So different weird things might happen when you don't close tags, but it won't always break your site. If I remove this div tag, everything kind of works the same, and it didn't actually automatically close it for me. If I move stuff around, it looks okay, but this will probably end up causing bugs. So it's something to bear in mind that you should really be careful about closing your div tags and your HTML tags and elements. You should really make sure that you do that, but you might mess it up sometimes. You might forget it, and you'll probably run into weird stuff. So getting used to the fact that that can happen is going to be important to fixing bugs and problems down the road. You can't avoid it. We all are going to do it, but you should know about it. So anyway, in the next video, we'll now get into a little bit more detail about HTML and a couple more tags that are really important that we're going to be using throughout.